Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. Hope everyone's having a great day. Do get yourself one of these handsome Juxtaposition 1 coffee mugs. Check the link below for my post office box so you can purchase a coffee cup. Today's video will be entitled Joe Scarborough Epilogue. Joe Scarborough Epilogue. This will be my final video on the scandal regarding the married woman, age 28, Lori Kaye Klausutis, who was on the staff as a staff assistant for Congressman Joe Scarborough back on July 19th, July 20th, 2001. This is just before the 9/11 debacle in, the Pentagon and World Trade Center, New York, Manhattan, and a forested area in Pennsylvania. I think those are the three places where there were explosions. All right, so we have a murder. It's most definitely murder. I'm going to tell you in the epilogue what really happened, more or less. And I'm going to say the things that our Mockingbird media refuses to say, because they always want to protect the pathological liars who are our Congress people and executive branch of government, including governors and pseudo presidents of the United States, who are all pathological liars. 100%. It's never been an exception. All political people are pathological liars. 100%. That includes your mayor. That includes your city council members. That includes your county board of supervisors. They're all pathological liars. And this is before COVID, when they lied relentlessly. During COVID, every person I just named, all those titles and positions, lied relentlessly about a fake vaccine bioweapon that escaped a Chinese DARPA-sponsored NATO lab in China, Wuhan, China. Complete poppycock, mendacity, balderdash story. Anyway, let's get back to Joe Scarborough, shall we? He was 38 years old at the time of the murder of his staffer. He had just authorized a $6,000 a year raise for her. She'd been working for him for 2 years, for over 2 years already. He is on the record of saying he hardly knew her and only met her a few times, implying 3 times. This is BS. He went to at least 2 Christmas parties with her. Anyway, there is so much lying going on in the Joe Scarborough story. I don't know where to begin. So I'll just tell you that she was hit upside the head on her left side with such force that it caused a brain bruise on the complete opposite side of her brain, on the right side. Her brain was bruised on the opposite side of her skull. Now, her skin wasn't broken, so there was not a lot of bleeding out on the floor. She was found in the what's called a satellite office of the Joe Scarborough Congressional District there in Fort Walton Beach. And I made a mistake in my previous video on Joe Scarborough. I said she was found in his house. That was untrue, and I want to correct the record. She was not found in his house. However, that doesn't mean that she didn't visit his house or that he didn't visit her house, because she's a married woman whose husband is out of town all the time. Timothy J. Klausutis, her husband, he's gone. He works for the Air Force Research Laboratory in autonomous weapons. That's code for smart dust. He works with advanced sensors. Well, smart dust, the pollution in your air that you breathe and get on your skin every day, every single day you leave your house. And you are saturating yourself in smart dust, which Lori Kaye Klausutis, her husband, worked in smart dust. Subsequent to her death, he was given another job at DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, where again he's working in autonomous weapon systems. That's the robots deciding who lives and who dies. It's autonomous weapons or robotic weapons. That's what her husband did. He was 33 years old. She's 28 years old. Joe Scarborough is 38 years old. He is a well-known philanderer in Washington, D.C. He's already been divorced on his first marriage. He doesn't seem to have any plans to get married again at the time. She's been married approximately 4 years, and her husband's out of town all the time. She lives in Niceville, Florida, Niceville. And the address for her husband, in case you were wondering, I happen to have it, is 115 Dana Point, Niceville. 115 Dana Point. The distance from 115 Dana Point to the murder scene of his wife is 18 miles. It's an 18-mile drive. Probably could do it in under 20 minutes to 348 Miracle Strip Parkway, adjacent to an IHOP, International House of Pancakes. This address also is home to two boat launches for fishermen. And you know that Joe Scarborough, he lives in a private home with a swimming pool and his own boat launch on Bayou Texar, which is the site of the first Seminole Indian War of Florida, is basically in the backyard of Joe Scarborough. He has a swimming pool with a diving board, and he had a boat launch, and that's at 3291 Seville Drive, 3291 Seville Drive. It's at the corner of Villa Fane Drive and Seville Drive. And you could take a boat from Joe Scarborough's backyard by a swimming pool. You could take a boat from there to one of the two boat launches at 348 Miracle Strip Parkway, and you could carry a dead body to his satellite office and dump her on the carpet. So it is entirely possible that she was murdered in Joe Scarborough's private home. That's a possibility. It's also possible she was murdered in her own home at 115 Dana Point in Fort Dalton. She lives up by the airport, the Destin Fort Walton Airport, next to a country club and a Florida State Park. She could have been killed in her home and the body transported. They have a boat dock at that house too. So you could take a boat from her private residence at 115 Dana Point, assuming that's where she was living. She could have been living in a different address, but they have a bayou up there also, and their bayou goes by a different name. If I can find it, I have notes that I've taken on these things, of course. It's called Shirk Bayou, Shirk. So you could actually take a boat from Lori Klausutis from her backyard. You could take a boat to where she works at 348 Miracle Strip Parkway. Go boat to boat. You don't have to use a car. It's 18 miles. It's 18 miles by car. It's 18 miles by boat. In case of Joe Scarborough, it's 40 miles by car. It's 40 miles by boat. You could do boat or car. It's 40 miles from Joe Scarborough's home to where the murder scene was. Well, the dead body disposal scene was. Now, we've heard continuous contradictory reports of who discovered her and what time. She was reported discovered at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, July 20th. She was reported as being found at 8:10, 8:15, 8:30. She was reported being found by the press secretary of Joe Scarborough, Miguel Serrano, that he and another unnamed man discovered her. But then it was contradicted by the newspaper who probably did not get the story correct. The lead dog newspaper in this case is the Northwest Florida Daily News. Northwest Florida Daily News published the most articles involving their House of Representative, Joe Scarborough, who had just won re-election for a second term of office. He then announced his resignation, his intention to leave Congress 6 months after he had been reelected. And he did that in May 2001. It looks like he had jobs lined up in the media. He did admit receiving numerous unsolicited phone calls regarding job opportunities in media. Whenever you hear the word unsolicited, it means he had active conversations about getting a better paying job. Okay. All right. He also said that he wanted to spend more time with his two sons. So he wanted to get out of Congress to have more time with his new sons. Whenever you hear a congressman say they want to spend more time with their family, what it means is they want to spend more time with their married mistress. They want to spend time with their girlfriends, friends, plural. Okay, that's what that means. I can assure you at no time did Joe Scarborough want to spend any time with his two sons at all, period. And I'll tell you why a little bit later in the video. But that was a bald-faced lie when he said he wanted to spend more time with his sons. He does not. He's not a family man. He's a philanderer, and he wants to have a married mistress. So it looks very much like he's having an affair with Lori Klausutis, who he claims he doesn't hardly know and has only met 3 times, despite him just approving a $6,000 a year raise for her and having her on his payroll for 2 years. So that's a bald-faced lie. He knows her extremely well. So when he says he doesn't hardly know her, that's a bald-faced lie. When he just authorized a $6,000 raise for her, he knows everything about her, and he knows her husband's out of town. And when the media reported that he was in Washington, D.C. on Friday, that means he was in Florida on Friday. Nobody works on Friday in Washington. Nobody works in a federal court on Friday. Nobody works in a state court past 11 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Okay, a superior court in your state, they're gone at 11:30. They don't stick around. They don't come back after lunch on Fridays. But federal court, they actually go home on Thursday at lunchtime. But anyway, what I wanted to tell you is the media went bent over backwards to tell you there was no foul play. They got the chief of police of the Fort Walton Beach Police Department to say no foul play. When pressed, he said regarding the wounds on her body, he said he never looked at the body. So you have the chief of police on Friday, July 20th, telling the media there was no evidence of foul play, despite the fact that he admitted he didn't look at the body. And she's got a divot in her left head, which they later are saying she hit the desk in the office, and that's what caused the wound to her head. BS. Is a tire iron or a crowbar or a baseball bat. So the chief of police, again, without inspecting the body, has concluded no foul play. They interviewed the medical examiner, who has a very checkered past. That's putting it mildly. Dr. Michael Berkland. Michael Berkland is a fraud. He lost his medical license in the state of Missouri. He was working in Jackson County in Kansas City, Missouri, where he was found to falsify dozens of medical exams where he lied about dissecting the brain. They have at least 8 examples where he lied about inspecting and dissecting the brain, and which means there's more than 8 cases where he lied. Those are on head injury cases, and he didn't examine the head on a head injury case. That's pretty egregious, right? Anyway, he was a contract. He wasn't on the payroll in Jackson County, was not. This is in Kansas City, Missouri. But he was let go. Then his hiring authority, aka boss, sent thousands of dollars to the Joe Scarborough, congressional campaign program. This is in 1996 that Dr. Michael Berkland was fired or terminated, as a contract medical examiner. He's not a coroner. He's not a coroner. He's a medical examiner. He works under the supervision of the department head, which would be the coroner's office. But I want to tell you, he was terminated. He immediately went over to Pensacola, Florida, where he, quick like a bunny rabbit, got a job in Joe Scarborough's district. Once Joe Scarborough had been elected to Congress, Michael Berklin appears in his district, in Joe Scarborough's district. I guess it's always helpful to have a corrupt medical examiner in the office in case you murder someone, or in case one of your friends murders someone, or in case a mistress that you're having an affair with gets killed by her husband. Like, good to have someone to cover up and falsify the medical exam report. That's exactly what happened in this case. We have a falsified medical examination report because the conclusion is wrong. Michael Berklin's conclusion, after spending a month finishing the report was finalized on August 24th, 2001. Remember, she was found dead sometime during Friday, July 20th, Friday. We have no idea what time she was found. We have no time of death. We have no estimate of a time of death. She could have been killed on Thursday night. She could have been killed, 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, or she could have been killed at 8 o'clock in the morning and conked out there on the floor, or was carried and placed next to the desk to stage a situation where she fainted and hit her head on a desk, which is what Dr. Michael Berklin's medical conclusion was. She had an undiagnosed heart condition, having run numerous marathons and completing them. The doctor says she has a heart condition that no doctor ever saw before. She then fainted, conked her head on the desk, had a stroke, and died. Juxtaposition saying that's implausible, that's absurd, that's falsifying a medical report. First of all, if it were true, which statistically is a 0 chance probability that that's true, but let's just say it is true, and this intrepid Dr. Michael Berklin, with no license in the state of Missouri, that he is correct. Let's say he's correct. He wouldn't be able to confirm it. He wouldn't know. He wouldn't be able to certify that that's what happened because, see, you can't prove that. That's unprovable. And yet he did do that. He did certify that that's his opinion of how she died. But here's a guy who lost his job because he lies on medical exams. He claims to examine people's brains when he doesn't. And it gets much worse because he continues to get in trouble with the state of Florida. And he is also found to have falsified other medical exams in Fort Walton Beach at the examiner office, which is 3 miles away. It's 3 miles away from the murder scene, which is 348 Miracle Strip Parkway. And his botched medical examination was done at 206 Staff Drive in Fort Walton Beach. That is 3 miles distance from where the body was discovered, where Lori was found. Now, to try to add credibility to a false medical exam, Dr. Michael Berklin claims that there were 3 other witnesses present during the exam, which was performed at 2:30 p.m. on Friday, July 20th, 2001. He says that Janet Hooter, spelled Huter, of the office there of Fort Walton Beach, she was present, and that policeman Kenneth Dusty Rhodes, spelled Rhodes, he's a Fort Walton Beach policeman. He was there. And Detective Dan Sequira, spelled Sequira, he is the detective on the case, that he was present. But having some experience with medical exam offices, that's 4 people, right? And you cannot have 4 people gathered around a table if you're going to dissect a brain and do anal swabs and vaginal swabs. You've got to have people stand back. So what it probably means is that Janet Hooter was doing busy work at the other end of the office, sitting at a desk, and that Dusty Rhodes was getting cigarettes, and Detective Dan Sakuro's looking at the ceiling. I don't think any of them are paying attention, because you see, we already know the chief of police, he's corrupt, because he's already declared no foul play before 2:30, before this autopsy is performed. Number two is you have to wait for toxicology results, which take several weeks, right? And Dr. Birkeland, to dispel any further investigation on this, proclaimed on August 6th that there was definitely, absolutely no foul play involved in this case, but admitted that he didn't have the toxicology results yet. So in other words, he's given you a conclusion without any basis of fact. So that's what the police chief did. And that means the police is corrupt. That's what Michael E. Birkeland did. That means he's corrupt. We already know he's corrupt, because the state of Missouri has terminated his license. He doesn't have a medical license in the state of Missouri. But this is going on in the state of Florida, in Joe Scarborough's district. I mean, you really should pick a licensed physician to do the medical exam, don't you think? Someone who hasn't already been found guilty of falsifying medical exams. He goes on to be suspended and have his license revoked and be assigned assessed a $5,000 fine of the state of Florida for falsifying medical exams subsequent to the Lori Klausutis medical exam. So what I'm saying is they need to get a different medical exam and a different medical examiner. But her husband, Timothy J., he doesn't think so. He wants this put to bed. He says an accident. That seems to implicate her husband as being motivated to kill her. He was allegedly out of town, but he won't say where. So Timothy J. Klausutis, he doesn't have an alibi for his whereabouts on Thursday the 19th, nor does he have an alibi for Friday the 20th when her body was found. And neither does Joe Scarborough. He doesn't have an alibi either. The newspaper said he was in Washington, D.C. He can't prove that. And you know it's not true. He said he had a flight booked to come home for the weekend to spend more time with his sons, but he won't give us the flight number. And he could have flown on a private jet. And I'm pretty sure he left on Thursday at lunchtime. I don't believe he was around Thursday afternoon in Washington, D.C. with the obelisk monument there. No. He left on Thursday, probably at lunch, no later than lunchtime, and came on because he's going to have a romantic weekend with his girlfriend, Lori Kaye, whose husband is out of town. They live next to the airport. Her husband flies in and out of that airport there, the Destin Fort Walton Airport. And he's gone for the weekend. So she's footloose and fancy free. And so is the divorced Joe Scarborough. He's footloose and fancy free also. So what I'm telling you is the gist of the story, the epilogue of the story is that only this Northwest Florida Daily News covered the story, and they only covered it for 3 weeks. Once the medical examiner, who is a fraud, Michael Birkeland, announced there was no foul play after he had performed the autopsy, there was no further articles published on this case. This is all going on simultaneously with the disappearance of Chandra Levy and the bald-faced line of fellow congressman from California, Gary Condon, who was 53 years old, having an affair with a 23-year-old Chandra Levy, whose parents reported her missing on May 6, 2001, just 2 months before the murder of Lori Klausutis. I cannot remember that name. Lori Kaye Klausutis. She was found dead on Friday, July 20th, 2001. Chandra Levy was missing on May 6th, 2001, and wasn't found until the end of May 2002 in Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C., which is over a year later. That dominated all national news stories and completely covered up the Joe Scarborough dead staffer in his office. She was wearing a white bra, a polo shirt, tan khaki slacks, white socks, and loafers, not exactly business attire. Allegedly, there were two people, a man and a woman, who were there to get a green card for Andreas Bergman. Andreas Bergman needed a green card. His new wife, Juanita Marie Bergman, a former nurse, was there, and she said that she found the body at 8:10 a.m., checked for the pulse, knew that she was dead. End of story. Now, I don't believe Juanita and I don't believe Andreas. I think it's a poppycock story. I don't believe Joe Scarborough would have an appointment at 8:30 in the morning on Friday when he was going to spend a 3-day weekend with his two sons, meaning with Lori, his lover, because he's not going to spend any time with his sons at all. But that's the cover story. What that means, he's not going to book an appointment. Now, I don't know why Lori was in that office, or even if she was. It's very likely she wasn't in that office. It's possible she was at Joe Scarborough's home over there at Bayou Texar. I think that's the most likely scenario, was that she was at Joe Scarborough's residence and he flew back Thursday afternoon. They spent the night together Thursday night. She then had a few things to do at the office. She drove 40 miles to 348 Miracle Strip Parkway, but she spent the night at 3291 Seville Drive. And her husband verified that. And then maybe her husband murdered her at the congressman's office at 348 Miracle Strip Parkway. I mean, that's the most motivated person in the story, is Timothy J. Klausutis, since he's not interested in her autopsy and he's not interested in investigating the death of his wife, and he's convinced it's a accident. I'm going to say he's the number one suspect, is the husband, and he works for DARPA, which means he's busy killing other people now with his smart dust autonomous self-directive weapons for DARPA. Timothy J. Klausutis, he was 33 years old at that time, and so today I think he's 59 years old, but he is electrical engineering smart desk person, like Jennifer Doudna, like Jamie Kate, like Rachel Horowitz. These people are threats to humanity, So I'm going to put him at the top of the list. And then, of course, I'm going to put Joe Scarborough on the list too, although I don't think he did murder his staffer. I think he was having an affair with her, and that she was very comfortable coming and going from his residences. That's what I think. Now, then Chandra Levy and Gary Condon, which was going on simultaneously, sucked all the air out of the room. Anyway, that's the gist of the story. You should know that after the dust cleared and the autopsy report was finalized around the 24th of August, which I'll provide a link below to the actual report. I do believe it is a fabricated, false report. I believe she was probably pregnant. I have a reason for that. I believe she was pregnant. The report says she was not pregnant. That doesn't mean she wasn't pregnant. I believe she was pregnant. I believe she was hit on the head with a baseball bat or tire iron or something of that effect. I think it was a blunt force instrument that didn't cause bleeding, and all the damage went inside. Her skull was fragmented into eggshell bits. So baseball bat, something of that nature, conked her on the head. And I think that person probably was her husband, who she's cheating on, Timothy J. Klausutis. Now, it could be a hired killer, could be a professional killer that either Joe or Timothy hired. But I think she's pregnant, probably with Joe Scarborough's kid. He doesn't care about his two sons. And you know why he doesn't? Because after that report, medical exam report, was issued on 24th of August, 2001, then we get out to September 6th is the last day at work for Joe Scarborough in the United States Congress. Then 5 days later, we have 9/11. Then 9/11 dominates the news and pushes Chandra Levy off the front page. Then we have 9/11. Then quietly, 30 days later, Joe Scarborough takes out a marriage license and marries Susan Wren, who works for George Bush's brother, Jeb Bush, who's the governor of Florida. So you see, Joe Scarborough marries a staff worker for the governor of Florida in October 2001, whilst everyone's focusing on 9/11. So by the time the dust clears, pardon the pun, the asbestos dust clears on 9/11, Joe Scarborough now is married and they have 2 children, a boy and a girl. So what happened to your 2 sons from your first marriage, Joe? You just completely flushed them down the toilet because you're moving on with the second woman, Susan Wren, and 2 children with her. So you don't have any time for your 2 sons from the first marriage. And you don't have any time for your dead mistress either. That's what it looks like to me, that this guy changes wives like you change underwear, okay? Frequently. And Miguel Serrano, press secretary, I don't believe anything you say, all right? And Juanita Marie Bergman, I don't believe anything you say either. Your husband needs a green card. That's why they're supposedly meeting. So in other words, they're easy to bribe. It appears that Lori's parents were bought off. Also, they're not interested in another autopsy. They're not concerned about corruption in this case. Timothy J. Klausutis, he doesn't care about the death of his wife. So I think that everybody got protected. Joe Scarborough to the husband, and the parents were bought off. And these Juanita and Andres Bergman, I think they were bought off with a green card and some cash. That's probably the most likely reason. And so was the media, because they stopped covering it. And then 9 years later, we find out that Dr. Michael Berkland is arrested for having over 100 plastic storage ice chests in a rented storage facility where he's storing hundreds of human body parts. He's arrested and charged with illegal storage of hazardous waste. Illegal storage of hazardous waste, meaning human body parts. So he'd already been fired and lost his medical license in the state of Florida. That happened 8 years earlier. Then he's arrested and charged with human trafficking of parts, but they dropped the charge to hazardous waste disposal storage, handling of hazardous waste. Do you see? So you see, to me, it's very clear that Michael Berkman is never a medical examiner. He gets access to dead bodies at the morgue, and then he steals and takes the parts home in his igloo ice chest, where he then brokers them on Craigslist, I guess. So he's in the human organ trafficking business, and he hides behind a medical license, medical exam job. But he makes most of his money selling human parts. This is Joe Scarborough. This is your Congress. This is a disgrace. This is why it's a zero trust world. They want you to be vaccinated with a cyber chip, and they want you to be part of a zero trust system where you can't go into a liquor store and buy potato chips and beer without a real ID, facial recognition, palm print. But they're selling human body parts out of the coroner's office, and they're falsifying medical examinations. That's the epilogue. And that's what the lesson here is, because Joe Scarborough divorced the woman that he had the 2 children with. So now he's up to 4 children. And then he gets his own television show, Scarborough Country. Then he gets Morning Joe, where he's introduced to another counterintelligence agent, the daughter of Zbigniew Zabrinsky, and Mika Zabrinsky, and they work together. Then they decide they're going to get married, and she's just the next act. She's the third. This is like Robert Kennedy Jr. He gets divorced as often as Joe Scarborough. I mean, Robert Kennedy's been divorced twice, married 3 times, and has mistresses that are substantially younger in the way that Gary Condit did. Gary Condit also had an affair with a flight attendant stewardess, which he lied about to police. And he lied that he had an affair with Chandra Levy. And Joe Scarborough has lied about his relationship with Lori Klausutis. He's lied about his relationship, says he doesn't know her. That's a lie. I think he knows her extremely well. I think she has the cipher code to his front gate at his gated homes, plural. And she would not be wearing a white thong and have a bruise to her brain and loafers on a Friday unless she was only going to work part day. And she's going to spend the rest of the weekend with her boss, Joe Scarborough, who's 38, 10 years older than her. Do you get it? Get it? Got it? Good. Please like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. And do get yourself a handsome juxtaposition coffee mug, shall you? Yes, you shall. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon. We'll catch you on the next video, right? Bye now.